When my child informed me that I would not be accepted at their residence for the holiday, I smiled, entered my vehicle and made one telephone call. By the start of the subsequent year, I had successfully terminated their mortgage payments. That action was only the opening phase of my strategy. It was essential that justice be reinstated and arrogance receive consequences. You would be shocked by my next move. Prior to proceeding, please subscribe to the channel and indicate your location in the comments section. I suggested I could prepare my well-known turkey this year, relaxing deeper into Michael's leather sofa. I referenced the turkey featuring the aged stuffing that his mother was fond of. I asked if he recalled her consistent remark that it surpassed her grandmother's recipe. The words remained suspended in the warm atmosphere between us, mixing with the scent emanating from Isabella's costly vanilla candles. Michael shifted beside me, his wedding band catching the illumination from their 12-foot-tall Christmas tree. Something about his body language changed, his shoulders tightening inward as if anticipating an impact. "Dad, regrettably, you won't be permitted here for Christmas." The news struck me comparable to a physical blow. "Oh," I replied. I blinked, convinced I had misinterpreted the statement. "What are you implying? Why would I be unwelcome?" Michael avoided my gaze, focusing instead on the marble coffee table. I had assisted him in selecting that table last spring when Isabella determined their existing furniture lacked sufficient refinement. "Isabella's parents are arriving, and they'd prefer if you weren't here." My hands turned cold. "They'd prefer? It's simply easier this way, Dad. You understand Isabella's family's emphasis on customs. They possess their specific way of conducting matters." His voice diminished with every syllable, suggesting internal shrinking. I scanned the living space, observing the silk window coverings I funded when Isabella raised concerns about privacy, the hardwood flooring obtained via my second mortgage, and the elaborate crown molding that maxed out my credit card. Every section of this residence bore evidence of my contribution, my sacrifice, and my devotion to my son. "Their own way," I reiterated slowly. "And what manner is that, Michael?" He winced. "Dad, please refrain from complicating this more than necessary." Through the kitchen entryway, I could see Isabella's new KitchenAid mixer, the professional model she demanded for a fleeting 3-week holiday baking phase. That $2,000 of my capital sat there, likely used only twice since October. "Where will I spend Christmas, then?" The query emerged softer than I intended. Michael's expression sagged. "Perhaps you could. I don't know. Maybe visit Aunt Rosa, or we could do something the weekend after." The weekend after. As if Christmas were merely another scheduled event that could be rescheduled for convenience. I stood up, my knees protesting after 8 years of bearing this responsibility alone. "I understand, Dad, wait," but I was already moving toward the exit, past the family portraits where my image became smaller and more distant in each successive frame, past the storage space holding Isabella's expensive array of jackets. My hand grasped a metallic doorknob. "Cold and solid beneath my touch, son," I stated without turning around. "Tell Isabella's parents," I directed. "Feliz Navidad." The December air struck my face abruptly as I walked toward my vehicle. Behind me I heard Michael call my name once, followed by the quiet, definitive click of the door closing. I remained in the driver's seat momentarily, the engine off, watching the twinkling Christmas lights in the windows of houses where I would never be welcome. My mobile phone vibrated, likely Michael hoping to smooth things over with empty promises and guilt. I did not respond. Instead, I inserted the key and drove into the darkness, leaving behind the inviting radiance of the home I had financed, but would never belong in. The heating unit hummed softly against the December cold as I navigated the familiar routes toward my own residence. South Hills spread out around me, every local intersection retaining memories of the individual I once was, that man believed that kinship was everything, and who would donate his last funds to see his son smile. That person was a fool. I paused at the intersection light on 29th and Grand. I observed a young father loading holiday presents into his SUV. His children pressed their faces against the window glass, their breath causing fog due to their excitement. There was a time when that was Michael and me. Before Isabella, before my function was reduced to a mobile ATM with inconvenient emotional needs. The numerical figures began to rotate in my mind rapidly, like a malfunctioning slot machine. $2,800 every month. For 5 consecutive years, my calculating device gave up trying to make sense of the total that past spring when I finally summed it up. $140,000, a sum exceeding what Maria and I had saved for our collective retirement, simply disappeared. I accelerated more forcefully than necessary when the light turned green. The truck reacted with a deep sound that matched my present mood. 5th Street. This was the street where I had refinanced my residence, or a residence Maria's and mine, to provide their down payment. The bank representative looked at me with a sad gaze I failed to recognize then. "Mr. Flores, are you completely sure about this? You're accepting substantial risk for someone else's investment." Someone else's investment. It was not categorized as my son's future. It was not my family's financial protection. It was someone else's investment. Lincoln Street. This was the banking establishment where I acquired a second mortgage when Michael was unemployed 2 years prior, just temporarily. Dad, just until I stabilize my situation. Isabella was positioned behind him, a $700 handbag hanging over her shoulder, nodding sympathetically while mentally gauging the worth of my desperation. Ultimately, my desperation proved worthless to them. I pulled into my driveway, the concrete of which was cracked, a repair I couldn't finance because every spare dollar disappeared into their idealized suburban existence. The porch illumination flickered, another repair I had postponed. Inside the house felt empty without Maria's laughter, without the warmth of family gatherings that would never occur again. My phone rang as I fumbled with the keys, the sharp sound echoing off the bare walls. Isabella's name flashed on the screen. She was probably calling to justify why I was not suitable for her parents' delicate sensitivities. Perfect timing. I had been anticipating this dialogue for 5 years. I answered on the 4th ring, allowing her sufficient time to question if I would pick up. Dennis. Isabella's voice was dripping with synthetic sweetness, the identical pitch she used when asking me to cover their water bill or property taxes. I heard about the small misunderstanding with Michael. Misunderstanding? I leaned against my kitchen counter, still wearing my outer coat. I don't think there's any misunderstanding, Isabella. You articulated your position quite clearly. Look, I know this appears harsh, but you must understand my parents' viewpoint. They are very traditional people. They anticipate a certain atmosphere during the holidays. A certain atmosphere, I repeated. And what specific atmosphere is that? A silence followed. I could detect the rustling of shopping bags in the background. She was likely spending funds that ought to have been allocated to their mortgage payment. Funds that, apparently, were my obligation. Well, they are unaccustomed to your style of cuisine. All that spicy Mexican food and loud music. And honestly, Dennis, they are educated individuals. They expect discussions concerning contemporary topics, literary works, art. The statements hurt more deeply than a physical blow. 8 years of suppressing my comments, of tolerating insults for the sake of Michael, of pretending not to observe her expression when she regarded me like I was hired help. My kind of cooking. My voice maintained a level, controlled tone. Do you mean the meals you consumed every Sunday for 3 years when money was scarce? The tamales you claimed reminded you of your grandmother? That was different. We were grateful then, but now with my parents, now with your parents, you cannot have the Mexican peasant humiliating you at your lavish dinner table. The artificial sweetness vanished. Don't be overly dramatic, Dennis. This has nothing to do with ethnicity. It pertains to social standing, she asserted. My father graduated summa cum laude from Washington State. My mother is fluent in 4 languages. They spend their summers vacationing in the Hamptons. What precisely would you contribute to the dinner conversation? Narratives concerning lane tile. Heat rushed into my chest, but I maintained a steady voice. I established a successful business from nothing. After your husband's grandfather passed away, I have provided employment to over 50 people. I have paid a greater amount in taxes than your father earned in his most successful year. Financial wealth is not everything, Dennis. Upbringing matters. Educational background matters. And frankly, Maria understood her position better than you understand yours. The telephone connection went dead silent. She had crossed a boundary I hadn't realized existed until she had deliberately walked across it in her designer footwear. What did you say regarding my wife? I'm merely suggesting she understood how to assimilate more effectively. She avoided causing disruption. She comprehended that some environments were not meant for her. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles were bleached white. Maria possessed more refinement in her little finger than your entire lineage will ever possess. Oh, please. She was a domestic worker who got fortunate. At least she had the good sense to remain silent regarding it. Isabella, my voice descended to an unfamiliar sound. I want you to pay very close attention. This discussion is concluded. We are done pretending to be family. You can't just, we are finished, I reiterated and terminated the call. I placed the phone gently on the counter, my hands surprisingly stable. Around me, the kitchen felt transformed, smaller, yet simultaneously cleaner, as though a heavy burden had evaporated from the atmosphere itself. I walked to my writing desk in the corner and retrieved the manila document holder I had been avoiding for several months. It contained bank records, mortgage documentation, and evidence of 5 years of automated transfers that had depleted my finances while they enjoyed a privileged life. It was time to stop the draining. Part 4 was titled The First Decision, Canceling the Mortgage. The documents were spread out across my kitchen table, resembling exhibits at a legal inquiry. 5 years of financial statements lay open, each displaying the identical automated transfer. $2,800 disappeared on the 15th of every month from my account into theirs, a verifiable record of my own lack of judgment. I took out my calculator and began the summation. All of it was lost, poured into a residence where I was denied entry for Christmas dinner. I reached for my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I located the number for my financial institution. The automatic system presented options in English and Spanish. How considerate, how obliging to people such as myself. Customer service. This is Jennifer. How may I assist you today? I need to terminate an automatic money transfer, I stated, my voice more assured than it had been in years. Certainly, sir. I will require your account number and some confirming information. I rapidly recited the numbers, hearing her input them. Professional, capable, displaying no judgment regarding why a 62-year-old man was stopping payments for what was presumably his son's home loan. I see the transfer you are referring to, Mr. Flores. $2,800 monthly to Wells Fargo. Account ending in 7,423. How long have you been initiating this transfer? 5 years. The words tasted bitter, and you wish to cancel it immediately. I glanced around my kitchen at the dated appliances I could not afford to substitute, at the walls requiring fresh paint, at the window frames that allowed cold air infiltration because I had spent my home improvement funds on someone else's impressive dwelling. Effective immediately, I verified. Done. The transfer has been cancelled. Is there anything else I can assist you with today? No, I replied, astonished by the positive sensation of the word. No, that covers everything. I ended the call and sat in the abrupt quiet of my house. Outside, the December darkness was descending over Spokane. Christmas lights sparkling in windows where relatives gathered without stipulations, without negative judgment, without the need to hide their true selves. For the first time in 5 years, the budget for the following month would be balanced. Since Maria passed away, this was the first time I could afford to repair my outside light, buy quality groceries, and perhaps even take a vacation. I collected the financial statements, the mortgage paperwork, all the proof of my excessive generosity. I then walked to my hearth, struck a match, and watched 5 years of my self-sacrifice incinerate into ash. The warmth of the fire felt good on my face, warmer than I had experienced in years. My phone alerted me of a text message, likely Michael wanting to express apologies, or Isabella needing cash for something urgent like decorative pillows. I did not check it. Instead, I poured myself a portion of the premium whiskey, the container I had been preserving for a special occasion that never seemed to arrive. Tonight felt sufficiently special. I raised my glass toward the empty room, toward Maria's photograph on the mantelpiece, toward the man I used to be and the man I was becoming. Merry Christmas to me, I announced, and I genuinely meant it. Part 5 was entitled, Isabella's Provocation. The next morning dawned crisp and bright, December sunlight streaming through my kitchen windows as I slowly consumed my second cup of coffee. For the first time in years, I was not calculating the amount of money that would vanish from my account in the upcoming 3 days. The sensation of being free tasted superior to the Colombian blend I had finally allowed myself to purchase. My phone rang at precisely 10:47 a.m. Isabella's name illuminated the screen, similar to a warning sign. Dennis, her voice conveyed that familiar sound of barely contained impatience. She required me to retrieve her parents from Spokane Airport. Their flight arriving from Portland was scheduled for 2 o'clock. I placed my mug down gently, watching the rising steam. Isabella, did you overlook our conversation from yesterday? Look, regardless of what that discussion concerned, we must prioritize practical matters now. My parents require transportation, and you are the only one with available time during the daytime. The impudence was staggering. Less than 24 hours after declaring me unworthy of sharing Christmas dinner with her relatives, she expected me to function as their personal driver, and you are asking me because that is the behavior of family. Dennis, they offer mutual assistance. Her voice became sharper with annoyance. Furthermore, let's be truthful here. You are not my competitor. You are too insignificant to be my rival. So, just enter your truck and collect them. There it was, the ultimate slight packaged as a directive. What airline? I inquired calmly. Alaska Air Flight 447. They will be at Luggage Carousel 3 in Dennis. They expect someone capable of handling their baggage correctly. Do not cause embarrassment for us. I could hear her fingernails tapping against a hard surface. Likely her granite countertop, the one I had financed when she decided laminate was unacceptable for her dinner gatherings. Of course, I responded. I will handle everything. Good, and wear something. Perhaps that blue shirt you wore for Michael's graduation. They are observant of such things. The line immediately terminated. She hadn't even offered a word of thanks. I leaned back in my chair, looking at my phone's darkened display. 2 o'clock, Flight 447, Luggage Carousel 3. I checked the wall clock above my sink, 10:52 a.m. Plenty of available time. I poured myself an additional cup of coffee, incorporating an extra teaspoon of granulated sugar, and opened the previous day's newspaper to the crossword I had not finished. 7 across, delayed gratification, 12 letters. The correct answer would eventually occur to me. Part 6 was titled, The Airport Trap. At 2:15 p.m. I was settling into my preferred armchair with a new serving of Earl Grey tea and the Sunday edition of the Spokane Review, the completed crossword from the day before, where the answer for delayed gratification was postponement, rested on my coffee table. My phone vibrated against the wood. Isabella's name again. I allowed it to continue ringing. The December sun slanted through my living room windows, warming the area where I had spent numerous lonely evenings calculating the expense of my generosity. Today the quiet felt altered. It felt deserved and purposeful. At 2:47 p.m. the phone buzzed once more. I could see the message preview. Dad, where are you? My parents are. I placed the phone face down and returned to reading the sports section. The Seahawks had experienced another loss. Some things remained constant. By 3:30, my phone had vibrated 6 times total. I had finished the newspaper, brewed a second container of tea, and started organizing the utility drawer in my kitchen. It was remarkable what could be accomplished when not rushing to serve individuals who considered you their private bellhop. The 7th phone call occurred at 3:45. Instead of Isabella's name, I saw unknown number. Likely her parents using a borrowed phone at the airport facility. I let that call ring as well. Outside, my neighbor was installing Christmas lights on his porch. His children ran across the yard with a frantic energy that only December afternoons seemed to inspire. Ordinary families engaged in typical activities. No one was stuck anywhere awaiting someone who would never arrive. At 4:15 p.m., my phone began ringing incessantly. Isabella, then the unknown number, then Isabella again. The vibrating became persistent, like an agitated bee trapped against glass. I walked to my kitchen and disconnected my stationary telephone from the wall outlet. Then I completely deactivated my mobile phone. Absolute quiet. I prepared myself a grilled cheese sandwich and warmed a container of tomato soup. This was comfort food I had restricted myself from consuming for months because every grocery dollar had gone toward meeting financial needs while funding their privileged existence. The cheese melted to a perfectly golden shade. The soup released steam in my preferred mug. Outside, the winter sun was already commencing its descent, casting elongated shadows across the back lawn. Somewhere across the municipality, 3 individuals were probably standing in an airport parking area, disputing taxi fares and wondering how their presumed personal servant possessed the boldness to abandon them. That thought improved the flavor of my soup. By 5 p.m., I had finished my meal, loaded the dishwashing machine, and was debating which film to watch. It had been many years since I had an entire evening to myself without worrying about urgent financial calls or last-minute favors. I was reaching for the remote control when someone began aggressively hitting my front door. It was not a gentle knock, but aggressive hammering, the kind of intense banging that shook the doorframe and announced pure rage. I walked slowly toward the sound, already fully aware of who I would find on the opposite side. The pounding escalated as I approached, each impact more violent than the preceding one. Through the viewing hole, I could see 3 figures packed onto my small porch, similar to wolves surrounding their quarry. I opened the door to see Cody Jenkins's flushed face inches away from mine. "What is fundamentally wrong with you?" he yelled, forcing his way past me into my living room without an invitation. "We waited at that damn airport for more than 3 hours. Catherine followed him. Her hair, usually perfect, was messy, and her lips were compressed into a thin line of intense hatred. This behavior is totally unacceptable for someone your age, Dennis. Absolutely barbaric." Isabella entered last, her expensive coat crumpled, her facial makeup smeared. "You humiliated us. Do you comprehend what you have done? My parents were forced to take a $40 taxi because you made the decision to get out of my house." My voice pierced their aggressive complaints like a sharp blade through smooth fabric. They halted mid-speech, stunned by the firmness in my tone. "Excuse me," I stated. Cody's face shifted color from red to purple. "You are not authorized to make demands here, friend, not after your actions today." "This is my residence," I stated quietly, not moving from my position near the door, "and I require you to leave immediately." Catherine stepped closer, her voice saturated with the condescending air she had mastered over decades of looking down on people like myself. "Dennis, you clearly fail to grasp the seriousness of your error. My husband possesses contacts throughout this city, business connections, social affiliations. You cannot treat people like us this way and anticipate." "This served as a lesson for you," I interrupted, maintaining steady eye contact with her. "A lesson regarding your excessive arrogance and your poor treatment of individuals you perceive as beneath you." Isabella's mouth dropped open in shock. "A lesson? Who do you believe you are to educate anyone about anything? You are a nobody. You are a no. I am someone who finally ceased being your personal bank and driving service." I finished. I moved aside and held the door open wider. "The instructional period is concluded. You may exit." Cody aggressively pointed a finger toward my chest, but cautiously avoided touching me. "You have no understanding of who you are provoking, old man. I have resided in this town longer than you have been breathing its air. I know people, highly influential people, individuals who possess the power to make your life extremely challenging." "Is that intended as a threat, Mr. Jenkins?" I inquired. "It is a solemn promise." His voice dropped to a menacing whisper. "You think abandoning elderly individuals at an airport is something you can do without facing repercussions? You are about to discover precisely how mistaken you are." Catherine agreed, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Indeed, actions carry consequences. Dennis, and yours will be quite public." Isabella pulled her father's arm. "Daddy, let's just depart. This pathetic old man is not worthy of our time." They exited my home like a defeated military formation. However, Cody turned back at the threshold. "You will regret this action," he guaranteed. I closed the door behind them and engaged the deadbolt with a satisfying sound. Through the window glass, I observed them cramming into their hired vehicle, still arguing among themselves as they drove away into the deepening December darkness. The house felt cleaner with their departure, as if their presence had left a noticeable stain that was only now beginning to lift. Nevertheless, their final statements echoed in the immediate silence: public consequences, important people, connections. I returned to my living room and picked up my tea, which was still warm in its container. For the first time during this entire complicated affair, I sensed something that might have been minor concern, but it was quickly overshadowed by something far more potent: anticipation. 3 days later, I was enjoying my customary morning coffee and reviewing the Spokane Review when I noticed my own photograph gazing back at me from the third page. The prominent headline stated, "Spokane businessman abandons elderly couple at airport during holiday storm." My hands became motionless around the coffee mug. There I was, in black and white print, an old photograph taken from my company's website, probably 5 years past its date. Below it, a narrative that simultaneously caused my blood to freeze and my temper to ignite. Cody and Catherine Jenkins, identified as visiting their daughter for the Christmas season, were allegedly left stranded at Spokane International Airport for a period exceeding 4 hours on Sunday when family member Dennis Flores failed to arrive for a pre-arranged pickup. The couple, both described as being in their late 50s, reportedly waited in freezing temperatures as a winter storm advisory was declared for the regional area. Winter storm warning. It had actually been 52 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. "We could not comprehend that someone would simply desert us in that manner," stated Cody Jenkins, a retired banking executive. "We contacted him repeatedly, but Mr. Flores never responded to his telephone. We were compelled to utilize an expensive taxi service in dangerous climate conditions. At our specific stage of life, this form of behavior is not merely thoughtless, it presents genuine danger." The published article proceeded with quotes regarding my alleged pattern of inconsistent behavior and questions about my mental well-being. Cody had presented himself and Catherine as helpless victims of a cruel old man who had suddenly lost control without any preceding provocation. There was no mention of the rejection from Christmas dinner, no context regarding Isabella's demands or the years of financial exploitation they engaged in. Just me, cast as the antagonist who deserted poor elderly travelers during a supposed snowstorm that only existed in Cody's imagination. I slowly set down my coffee and read the report again, then a third time. The name attached to the article was Patricia Morrison, Lifestyle Section Editor. I did not recognize the individual's name, but I immediately recognized the operational tactic. Cody had invoked favors, utilizing his banking network connections to ensure this specific narrative was published precisely where it would inflict maximum damage upon my reputation. It was an astute move. For the first occasion since this entire debacle began, I felt a reluctant respect for my adversaries. They were not just self-centered beneficiaries of trusts throwing juvenile fits. They were calculated and strategic. They grasped the reality that, in a smaller municipality like Spokane, one's public standing was everything. A single, strategically published newspaper article possessed the power to destroy decades of hard labor. They had formally declared total warfare. I carefully folded the newspaper and placed it aside, my thought process already shifting into the meticulous planning mode that had enabled me to establish my business from nothing. This was no longer about airport retrieval. This was not about holiday dinner or mortgage payments. This was now centered on achieving victory. I activated my laptop and started entering names into internet search tools. Cody Jenkins, Catherine Jenkins, Isabella Flores. I researched their profiles on social media, their network of connections, their established habits, and their inherent weaknesses. Everything they had foolishly made publicly accessible over the years. If they wished to engage in a strategic game, I would demonstrate the skills of a true strategist. I checked the wall calendar. December 18th, 7 days remaining until Christmas Day. 7 days to plan an action they would never successfully forget. I spent the next 72 hours existing in a completely different mental space, not the world where I was Dennis Flores, the emotionally broken older man who allowed his family to take advantage of him. This was the world where I operated as Dennis Flores, the disciplined businessman, the strategic analytical thinker, the person who had successfully constructed something from scratch and was determined not to permit a group of entitled parasites to demolish what I had dedicated 40 years to building. My laptop became the centralized command area. Social media profiles occupied my browser tabs like crucial cards in a high-stakes gambling game. Cody Jenkins was identified as a retired manager from First National Bank, a current member of the Spokane Country Club, and the treasurer for the Inland Northwest Business Leaders Association. He was a person who had spent his working life in positions of authority and influence. Consequently, he was a person with a significant amount at risk of losing. Catherine's Instagram account presented a carefully manufactured image of sophisticated living. It displayed charity gatherings, organized wine tastings, and vacation photographs taken in Coeur d'Alene with the accompanying tag "Blessed Life." Every single post was meticulously arranged to project financial success and social sophistication. Comments from her acquaintances praised her refined preferences and inspiring life choices. All of it was financed by capital belonging to other people, including my own funds. Isabella's Facebook chronological feed revealed the actual narrative. Posts mentioned their beautiful home featuring images of the kitchen I had paid for. Check-ins indicated visits to expensive restaurants during the same months when I was covering their utility expenses. A status update from the preceding week expressed enthusiasm for Christmas dinner with family, anticipating the opportunity to show off our hosting skills, our home, our success. The level of narcissism was truly breathtaking. However, it was Michael's LinkedIn profile that provided the conclusive piece I required. His recent activities showed a newly established connection. Patricia Morrison, lifestyle editor at the Spokane Review, the identical Patricia Morrison who had authored the vicious, critical article about me. I leaned back in my desk chair contemplating the evidence. Spread across my screen, these people had committed 3 critical errors. Firstly, they had completely underestimated my capabilities. Secondly, they had initiated their attack in the public domain, meaning I had the full right to respond publicly. Thirdly, they had extensively documented their entire privileged lifestyle online, thereby creating a flawless inventory of their hypocrisy. I clicked through to Patricia Morrison's online profile. She was 43 years old, held a journalism degree obtained from WSU, and had accumulated 15 years' experience at local newspapers. She held no prior connection to the banking or finance sector, which meant Cody had made an unsolicited approach, likely through someone known from his professional network. A quick search, lasting only 5 minutes, through local business directories confirmed my initial suspicion. There were 3 mutual professional contacts between Cody and Patricia's direct editor. The story had not appeared by accident. It had been deliberately and meticulously placed. Amateur efforts began typing in a fresh document. This document was not intended to be merely a reaction to their media attack. It was something far superior. It was a chronological summary. 5 years of consistent financial support documented with bank records, financial receipts, and checks that had been cancelled. The down payment amount for their residence, $47,000, originated from my home equity loan. The kitchen remodel, initiated when Isabella insisted that granite countertops were essential, cost $18,000 from my personal credit card, not because that date was Christmas Eve, but because it represented the perfect day for justice to be served. Based on Isabella's Facebook events, they were planning to host a Christmas dinner gathering for 12 guests. This included relatives, close friends, neighbors, and associates from their social circle. These were precisely the kind of people who regularly read the Spokane Review and formed their opinions based on what they encountered there. The type of people who deserve to receive the complete truth. I closed my laptop computer and walked toward my kitchen, where I had stored my high-quality camera. I had purchased it years ago specifically to document work sites for my construction business. It was now time to utilize it to document a completely different kind of evidence. The next day was Christmas Eve. Tomorrow, Cody Jenkins and his immediate family were going to comprehend what occurred when you formally declared conflict against someone who actually knew how to fight effectively. Christmas Eve morning arrived gray and cold, the kind of Spokane winter day that made residents appreciate warm dwellings and family unity. It was unfortunate that I would be welcome at neither location. However, I had made other arrangements. I arranged my compiled evidence systematically, similar to a lawyer preparing for a formal trial. The bank statements were grouped by year. Each and every monthly payment was emphasized using a yellow marker. Receipts were organized in chronological order, clearly illustrating the repeating pattern of my financial backing for their lifestyle. Printed photographs from their social media displayed Isabella's recently acquired jewelry, their lavish vacation spots, and the costly holiday decorations currently adorning the residence I had financially assisted them in keeping. Every single page was duplicated 12 times, one set designated for each dinner guest. The newspaper article was placed on the top of each stack, my red pen annotations clearly visible in the margins. The word lie was written next to Cody's quotations about hazardous weather conditions. False was written beside the accusation regarding my erratic behavior. Missing context was highlighted where they had deliberately failed to mention 5 years of continuous financial support. I dressed with care in my best suit, the navy blue one I had worn for Maria's funeral, now pressed and ready for a different sort of solemn departure. Today, I was definitively saying goodbye to the man who had willingly served as a doormat for his family. Tonight, I would transform into a person who demanded proper respect. At 6:30 p.m., I loaded my briefcase with the evidence packets and drove toward Kendall Yards. Their house emanated a warm, inviting light. Vehicles occupied the entire driveway and were parked lining the street. Through the front windows, I could distinguish figures moving within the dining room. Isabella was actively playing the role of the sophisticated hostess in the home my money had helped them purchase. I parked my vehicle on the street directly opposite their house and checked my watch. 6:45. The timing was perfect. It was sufficiently late that every guest would be seated for the dinner service, yet it was early enough that they would still be consuming the main course. This ensured that an easy escape would be impossible for anyone present. The front entrance door was, predictably, unlocked. Isabella frequently enjoyed boasting about the high safety level of their neighborhood, how they did not need to be concerned about security measures, unlike people residing in less desirable areas. I let myself enter silently. The warm indoor air struck my face, along with the sounds of conversation and laughter emanating from the dining room. And then I overheard Catherine remark, "But darling, that is not the way we conduct matters in our family," followed by more laughter. Our family, after all the deliberate actions they had taken to exclude me from it. I walked directly into the dining room carrying my briefcase. 12 different faces rotated toward me, displaying emotional reactions ranging from sheer surprise to outright horror. Isabella froze, her wine glass suspended halfway to her lips. Michael's face was noticeably pale. Cody and Catherine appeared as if they had just witnessed a ghost. "Good evening, everyone," I announced calmly, placing my heavy briefcase on their marble sideboard. "I trust you do not object to me participating in your Christmas celebration." Isabella found her voice first. "Dennis, this behavior is entirely inappropriate. You are required to leave immediately." "In fact," I stated, opening my briefcase and pulling out the first organized stack of documents, "I believe your guests are entitled to know who actually paid for this entire dinner, this residence, and this specific lifestyle you have been exhibiting." A woman I did not recognize, likely one of Catherine's charitable acquaintances, leaned forward, intrigued. "What exactly is he talking about, Isabella?" "He is experiencing some form of emotional episode," Isabella quickly responded. "Michael, contact someone for assistance." But I was already moving around the extensive table, placing an organized packet of documents directly in front of each seated guest. "Here are the copies of the bank records," I stated in a conversational tone. 5 consecutive years of financial support, $168,000 solely in mortgage payments, plus the initial down payment, subsequent renovations, furniture acquisitions, appliances, everything surrounding you. The entire room fell into silence, interrupted only by the rustling sound of paper as 12 individuals began critically examining the presented evidence. I observed the transformation of their facial expressions as they absorbed the numerical figures, the dates, and the undeniable verification of my sustained generosity and their deception. "This is," one man started to say, then stopped, staring intently at a bank statement. "Outrageous," concluded the woman seated across from him. "Isabella, why did you withhold all of this information from us?" Isabella's flawless composure was rapidly deteriorating. She claimed, "It is significantly more complicated than it appears. Dennis volunteered his assistance to us. We never explicitly asked." "Actually," I interrupted, and pulled out the printed newspaper article. "Let us discuss precisely what you did ask for, and what you communicated to the media about me." The ambient temperature in the room appeared to decrease by 10 degrees. I placed copies of the newspaper article onto the table surface, observing as the assembled dinner guests recognized my photo from the derogatory story that had been published 3 days earlier. "Now," I stated, my voice projecting clearly through the profound silence. Cody's face had lost all color. Catherine sat rigidly still in her chair, her glass of wine momentarily forgotten in her hand. "Mr. Jenkins here exploited his professional banking connections to deliberately plant this published story," I continued, tapping the newspaper. "Observe how I am characterized as unstable and dangerous, abandoning poor elderly individuals in freezing weather conditions." A gray-haired man wearing an expensive sweater looked up from the reading material. "Cody, what is the meaning of this?" "The actual temperature was 52 degrees and sunny," I stated before Cody could offer a response. "And they were not tourists who were stranded. They were Isabella's biological parents. Arriving for the Christmas dinner I had been explicitly prohibited from attending because I was deemed unsuitable for their elevated company." Catherine finally managed to speak. "That's not we never said." "You never explicitly said what, Catherine?" I challenged her. I took out my phone, displaying multiple screenshots of Isabella's public social media posts. "That I was too low-class for your specific parents. That my Mexican cuisine and working-class style of conversation would cause embarrassment for you in front of your educated associates." The woman I had identified as one of Catherine's charity friends shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Catherine, surely you did not." "He is deliberately misrepresenting everything," Cody blustered defensively, but his voice lacked any genuine conviction. "This man suffers from severe mental health issues, the combination of aging, stress, financial instability." "Financial instability." I nearly laughed out loud. "Mr. Jenkins, I have been financially supporting your daughter and son-in-law to the amount of nearly $3,000 every month for the last 5 years. The only financial problems present here are the ones you are about to inherit." I turned to address the entire group at the table. "These people have taken $200,000 from me while concurrently calling me derogatory names behind my back. They have successfully manipulated my son to turn against me. They prohibited me from participating in family gatherings, and when I finally decided to defend myself, they attempted to systematically destroy my reputation via the local newspaper." Michael spoke for the first time, his voice barely audible. "Dad, I was unaware of the newspaper article." "Your wife was aware," I stated quietly, and her parents were the orchestrators of the plan. They transformed me into a villain simply for declining to continue serving as their personal ATM and chauffeur service. The entire social dynamic within the room was shifting rapidly, similar to tectonic plates moving. I could clearly perceive it in the expressions of the guests. The gradual realization that everything they had been told about tonight's allegedly generous hosts was entirely built upon deceitful fabrications. "This behavior is indefensible," declared an elderly woman wearing pearl jewelry, staring at the bank statements. "Cody, how could you permit your daughter to exploit this man's generosity and then subsequently attack him publicly when he stopped providing the funds?" Cody's carefully maintained composure was visibly shattering. He insisted the woman did not comprehend the full complex situation. "I understand completely," the woman sharply interrupted. "This man has been financially supporting your extended family while you consistently treated him like common hired help. And when he finally asserted his refusal, you attempted to ruin his public standing." Catherine's voice emerged strained and tight. She insisted, "He abandoned us at the airport after you informed me that my presence was unwanted at Christmas dinner because I would be inappropriate for your parents' company," I stated calmly. "After 5 years of paying their accumulated bills, while you consistently looked down upon me because of my ethnic background and my educational attainment level." The silence that followed was profoundly deafening. 12 people were staring at Cody and Catherine with expressions ranging from intense disgust to palpable embarrassment for having associated with them. Isabella made a final, desperate attempt to control the unfolding narrative. "Everyone, please. This is simply a family issue that has spiraled out of control." "No," I stated firmly. "This ceased being categorized as a family issue when you decided to make it public knowledge. When you deliberately used the local newspaper to attack my personal character, when you've determined that my established reputation was acceptable collateral damage for your personal pride." I surveyed the table, looking at faces I did not recognize but who now knew precisely who I was. "I intended for all of you to know the verifiable truth before you read further information about Dennis Flores in the paper again, because you will absolutely read about me again. But the next instance will present the real, unfiltered story." I closed my briefcase and adjusted my necktie. "Enjoy the remainder of your dinner. It is the last one for which I will be providing the financial compensation." As I proceeded toward the entrance door, I could distinctly hear the chaotic eruption commencing behind me. Voices were raised in strong accusation, demanding specific answers to pointed questions, the audible sound of a meticulously constructed social facade collapsing entirely. It was the most satisfying Christmas music I had ever experienced. The legal document arrived on a Tuesday morning in the month of March. It was delivered via registered certified mail, carrying the undeniable weight of forthcoming legal consequences with every single word. I signed for the delivery at my front entrance. I noted how the spring atmosphere smelled of new growth and future possibility, distinctly unlike the winter desperation that characterized those dark December days. The envelope was marked "Notice of Default. Final demand for payment." Inside, 3 consecutive months of overlooked mortgage payments had caught up to Michael and Isabella, like a significant wave of inescapable reality. They were now $8,400 in past due arrears. They were granted 14 days to bring the full account current, or face legal foreclosure proceedings on the residence I had financially assisted them in acquiring. I placed the letter deliberately aside and returned to drinking my coffee, reading it in the way one reads news regarding distant meteorological events, interesting but no longer a personal concern of mine. My phone had been ringing continuously for weeks with increasingly frantic telephone calls. Isabella's phone number was blocked after receiving the first hysterical voicemail message. Cody and Catherine's established social standing in the Spokane community had quickly evaporated like morning mist following their humiliating experience at the Christmas dinner. Even Michael's numerous calls, which I had been ignoring due to a complex mixture of lingering anger and curiosity about how long he would take to overcome his personal pride. The final answer, apparently, was 97 days. He knocked on my front door that specific Thursday evening. He was no longer the self-assured man who had deliberately excluded me from the holiday dinner. Instead, he appeared as though he had aged a full decade in only 3 months. Dark circles were visible beneath his eyes. His once expensive suit was wrinkled. The palpable smell of desperation clung closely to him, similar to inexpensive cologne. "Dad," he managed to say when I opened the door fully, "we need to engage in a conversation." I stepped aside to permit his entry. I noted how he observed my house as though seeing it for the very first time. He saw the new furniture I purchased with the first monthly payment that was free of the mortgage burden. He saw the fresh paint on the walls that had not been updated for 8 years, because every available spare dollar had been directed toward funding his own lifestyle. He saw the long-delayed repairs I was finally able to afford now that I was no longer financially supporting someone else's version of the American dream. "Nice place," he commented quietly. "It's what occurs when you allocate money toward yourself instead of people who fail to appreciate it," I replied, settling into my recently purchased recliner chair. "Coffee?" He shook his head negatively. He perched nervously on the very edge of my couch, as if he feared becoming too comfortable. Dad, I need you to fully understand how profoundly sorry I am about everything that occurred. Christmas dinner, the damaging newspaper article, the manner in which the manner in which we treated you. Go on, I prompted him. I was genuinely unaware of Cody planting that story. I absolutely swear I didn't know when I eventually found out. He ran both hands through his hair agitatedly. Jesus, Dad, the terrible things they said about you behind your back. The way they spoke about our family, specifically about Mom's memory. My jaw involuntarily tightened at the painful mention of Maria, but I consciously kept my voice stable and level. And what exactly did they communicate about your mother? That she was better at knowing her place than you knew yours, that she understood boundaries. He could not bring himself to meet my eyes directly. I should have actively defended you. I should have stood up firmly to them years ago. Yes, I simply replied. You absolutely should have. We sat together in complete silence for a prolonged moment. The immense weight of 5 years of accumulated mistakes occupied the space between our positions. Outside, I could hear the sound of my next-door neighbor mowing his lawn. The commonplace sounds of an ordinary Thursday evening in a typical neighborhood where sons did not prevent their fathers from attending holiday dinners. The house is now in foreclosure proceedings, Michael finally confessed. I know we cannot manage the monthly payments without. He stopped speaking, seemingly realizing the implication of his words. Without my financial assistance, I completed his statement. Without the specific money I was sending every single month while you permitted your wife's family to treat me like garbage. I fully grasp how this situation appears. Michael, I leaned forward, ensuring he was looking directly at me. Do you accurately know the precise amount of money I transferred to you over the course of those 5 years? He nodded his head miserably. Isabella calculated it after Christmas. The mortgage installments, the down payment, everything else. Over $200,000. $237,468. I corrected him precisely. I am aware of the exact figure because I finally did the one thing I should have done many years ago. I manually added the whole amount up. His face completely crumpled. Dad, I am truly sorry. I honestly do not know how to adequately fix this mess. You are unable to fix it, son. That money is permanently gone. But, more importantly, those entire years are also gone. 5 years when I could have actively been building a meaningful relationship with you instead of financing your wife's extravagant fantasy existence. I know I understand that fully now, Michael responded. He looked up at me with a flicker of what might have been hope, but perhaps we could make a new beginning. Maybe there is some available solution to. Are you currently asking me to restart the mortgage payments? The fragile hope immediately extinguished in his eyes. We are going to lose absolutely everything, Dad. The house. Isabella's respect for me. Her parents' crucial approval. I am completely unsure of what I will do next. You will find a way to figure it out, I stated, without any cruelty. The same way I successfully figured out how to continue living without a son who respected my presence. The same way I had to learn to spend Christmas alone while you celebrated with people who considered me beneath their standing. He then began to weep softly, quietly, like a man who had completely exhausted all other viable options. I have lost you permanently, haven't I? I prioritized their feelings over yours, and now I have lost you forever. I observed him for a long period of time. This man whom I had diligently raised and loved and made profound sacrifices for, who had permitted his wife's family to successfully convince him that his father was simply not adequate for their level of company. Michael, I finally responded, you did not lose me. You willingly gave me away. There exists a clear distinction. He wiped the moisture from his eyes using the back of his hand. Is there any remaining possibility, any conceivable way you could grant me forgiveness? I already forgave you many months ago, I stated, and I sincerely meant the words. But receiving forgiveness does not imply returning to the way things were previously arranged. It does not signify pretending this entire ordeal never transpired, or that I am prepared to resume funding a lifestyle that inherently required me to be grateful for the small remnants of your attention. Then what exactly does it mean? I stood up from my chair and walked toward my mantelpiece. Maria's framed photograph was situated next to a newly added picture. It showed me with Rosa and her entire family at an Easter dinner. That was the very first holiday I had spent with individuals who genuinely wanted me to be present. It means that if you truly desire a renewed relationship with me, you will be required to construct it entirely from the foundation up. It means actively demonstrating respect to me, instead of constantly demanding that I earn it. It means basing all your crucial choices on what is morally right, not simply what is most convenient for you. I turned back toward him. And it explicitly means that the next time someone, whether your wife, her parents, or any other individual attempts to exclude me from your family gatherings, you will remember who actually behaves like genuine family. He nodded his head slowly, understanding perhaps for the very first time that respect was not an automatic guarantee. The house, he inquired quietly, is no longer my problem to solve. I sat back down in my chair, experiencing a lightness I hadn't felt in many years. You are a fully grown man, Michael. Figure the situation out in the manner that adult men typically do. Secure a job that generates sufficient income to adequately cover your monthly bills. Sell the current residence and acquire something you can realistically afford. Cease living beyond your current financial means, and stop expecting other people to financially subsidize your personal choices. He stood up slowly from the couch. His shoulders were notably straighter than when he had initially arrived. You are correct about every single point. I understand. He walked toward the exit door, then turned around to face me. Dad, for whatever it is worth, seeing you actively defend yourself at that Christmas dinner, I felt a mixture of pride and embarrassment and anger, but definitely pride, too. Good, I stated. Perhaps there is still some genuine hope remaining for you yet. After his departure, I poured another glass of the good whiskey and stepped out onto my rear porch. The spring weather was beginning to arrive in Spokane. The trees were starting to bud. The air was warming with tangible promise. In 4 months' time, I would reach 63 years of age. Maria had been gone from my life for 8 years already. I recognized that I had frivolously wasted 5 of those specific years serving as a doormat for individuals who completely failed to appreciate my sacrifice. I was firmly resolved not to waste any more time. My phone chimed with a text message notification from Rosa. Dinner Sunday. The children are eager to show you their school assignments. I smiled gently and typed a reply immediately. Wouldn't miss it. True family, it became evident, was something you located with individuals who genuinely welcomed your presence. Everything else amounted to excessively expensive theater, and I was officially done purchasing tickets to shows where I was prohibited from being on the stage. The whiskey tasted profoundly like freedom, and the future looked exactly as bright as I was personally willing to make it. If this narrative resonated with you, please ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your personal impressions of this story within the comments section. To proceed and listen to the next narrative, click on the box displayed on the left side. Thank you for your viewership.